Running a small business means I wear lots of hats. When I put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn Hiring Pro to make it easy. LinkedIn Hiring Pro helps manage my hiring workflow, puts my job post in front of a unique network of professionals, and matches me with the best candidates for my business. I can also share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. No wonder most small businesses say they'd use LinkedIn Hiring Pro again. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we have yet another training camp breakdown for you. This time, day number 3. Not as action-packed as day 1 and 2 were combined, but still going to get into Brock Purdy's performance, how the defense has looked under Raheem Morris, including what I believe to be the best unit on the field through the first 3 days. We'll dive into some more positional camp battles, but don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show. And let's kick things off with the biggest news story of the day coming out of San Francisco, or technically Santa Clara, that being the unfortunate health of Ricky Pearsall. We literally just talked yesterday about how explosive San Francisco's offense has looked, at least on the very limited time we've seen them. Without pads on, Mike Evans, De'Zhaun Stribling, Ricky Pearsall, your mind starts to linger as to could this offense be as explosive as they were in 2023? And just when you started to get a little excited, that is evaporated and erased within seconds, because right before the 49ers were set to take the practice field for the third day of media availability training camp practices, we got some of the worst news you can possibly get for a player you believe to be, or at least believe to be playing, an integral part of your offense. Because Ricky Pearsall, according to the team itself and ESPN's Nick Wagner, is dealing with some swelling in his knee related to a PCL injury he suffered last season. And here's the kicker, because that in itself isn't the worst possible thing, but this is where things get worse. The team is exploring, and I quote here, all options, including surgery, and there is, again, some quotes, some concern. This sucks. I mean, this freaking sucks. From a fan standpoint, I'm sure Pearsall's equally as frustrated. It raises a lot of questions in regards to what his recovery, his therapy, his rehab was like last year when the injury initially concerned or happened. And now we are here in 2026, a make-or-break season for Ricky Pearsall, a guy that you're banking on being your number 2 wide receiver, your route runner, your separator in your offense. And now we're talking season-ending potential, and the season is 3 days old. That is the last possible thing you wanted to hear for a guy that you are believing to be, a very important piece of your passing attack, a guy who you saw last season when healthy can be a game-changing talent, can actually lift up and raise the ceiling of this offense with Brock Purdy at quarterback. And again, in small glimpses, it's like, wow, this guy can play, but it feels like we're back to, square one of, can you actually play? And now there's conversations of, will he play at all in 2026, leading to bigger discussions of, do you keep Pearsall around for 2027? Do you even, can you bank on him being a part of the offense next year? Are you once again drafting a receiver early to replace him? Are you signing a veteran guy in free agency to replace him this year and for the future going forward, for a guy who you were hoping was a building block of your offense? Now it's like you are now in the realm of Danny Gray, of other Dante Pettis, other guys that they thought, okay, you could be something for us, picked on, round 2 or 3, and all of a sudden within a flash, like, no, you can't make an impact at all. And it's even worse because we've seen what Ricky Pearsall can do. We have seen the impact he can make when out there, when healthy. Ricky Pearsall is a good wide receiver. The problem is you can't be a good wide receiver if you can never play the position of wide receiver. And I think we all believe that, year 3 has to be the year Pearsall breaks out. It has to be different than the last couple of seasons. We thought that the PCL injury was behind him. Then you saw a video on social media, him working out with a knee brace on and a leg sleeve on. And sometimes those things are precautionary, right? Jimmy Garoppolo wore the knee brace for a long time post ACL surgery. A knee sleeve, a leg sleeve isn't too uncommon at practice. Arm sleeves are, worn by almost every receiver nowadays. So you didn't want to put too much stock into that. And 2 days of actual practice and a jog through into the season, they're talking swelling, surgery, donezo for the entire year. And, we can get into mourning the loss of a player of Pearsall and what this means for the offense going forward, what it means for the rest of the team around him, the other receivers. But I have a gripe. I have a complaint. And I'm going to get on my soapbox, and you're going to get a little more frustrated, Sterling, today, because as somebody who believes in the player of Ricky Pearsall, and I'm sure even if you aren't in that same camp as myself, you at least would agree what you saw when you saw it was worth getting behind and believing in. But this, to me, is my breaking point, because we've had a long talk this year, previous years, a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years. It's been an ongoing discussion of the health of this roster, the training staff on the roster. It's gotten to a point where now you're hearing about electrical substations and EMF waves. And I don't know if all that stuff is true or whatever, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know what needs to be done, what has to be done. I am going to usually default to those in charge because they normally know better than I do. But when things like this occur, and you've already seen the training staff have some failures in the past, despite the praise you hear from George Kittle, Eric Armstead in previous years of, how much San Francisco has done to keep them healthy and upright, you've heard, even this morning, before the Pearsall news came out, Clay Kubiak, the OC, saying, yeah, we're changing our practice schedule. Instead of 3, legitimate practices in a row, and then 1 day off, we're going to go 2 practices, a jog through, keep our guys fresh, alleviate the need for veteran off days throughout the off-season program and training camp and preseason. Then we'll have an off day. Essentially giving guys kind of a wind down day, then an off day, then ramping themselves back up. And you're going, okay, like they're pouring money back into the facility. They are changing the regimen they do. And now it's like, man, all that meant nothing. And all that would have still meant nothing because Pearsall clearly never fully healed from the injury. And that to me is a problem. Obviously, sometimes injuries just linger. Sometimes guys don't heal from surgeries correctly. Like I'm sure people know each other. I know people who've had surgery and they never were right afterwards. But if you're talking about Ricky Pearsall needing surgery, essentially 3 days into a brand new season, when pads aren't on, when he's had the ability to see every team doctor possible for an entire offseason, to get clinical checkups with other doctors, to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opinions on the PCL. And none of that led to, you may need surgery a month ago. You may need surgery 2 months ago. Surgery is on the table to, you may miss a few months of the season, but you're going to be back by late September. You're going to be back by November and help this team push for the playoffs. I can go back further. When Ricky Pearsall initially told the media after week 4 against the Jacksonville Jaguars that, hey, I have some instability in my knee, why was surgery never discussed then? I understand that some players, including myself, who isn't a player, I'm a human being, would like to refrain from going under the knife, right? The more times you get cut open, the more times you probably aren't going to come back the same. I understand that. I've had surgery on my knee. I've recovered and I'm since healthier post-op, but still, the more surgeries you have, the odds are you're not going to come back the same player. Modern medicine's great. Modern medicine has altered those percentages, but still, surgery is never something you run towards unless you're a Kardashian, right? Ricky Pearsall, understandably so, probably didn't want to have surgery. But I'm sorry, when a guy gets hurt in week 4 of last year and it lingers for the subsequent 20 to 18 weeks, the guy can't even shoot up week 18 and barely plays in the playoffs and missing the first game against Philadelphia and having no impact in game number 2 against Seattle. How was there no conversation of Ricky's not responding to the therapy, to the rehab? We have to take the next step in this process. There's no reason why a player who didn't fall down, who didn't get tackled, who wasn't wearing pads, who simply was cutting on air and did not suffer a tear, did not have a new injury, did not re-injure the knee. This is simple swelling from an injury he had 9 months ago that this team's medical staff, other doctors involved, maybe even Pearsall himself, did not accurately address. Whether it was going through the right channels to have the correct therapy, to do the right thing. But you can't tell me the San Francisco 49ers team doctors did not look at his PCL and say, maybe some rehab, that'll get it done. And every step of the way, it didn't respond. They didn't think, maybe it's more severe than it probably is. Maybe Ricky, who played weeks 1 through 4, missed the next 6 weeks, came back, played the next 4, got hurt again, wasn't tackled, fell down on the knee, and then had the same issues. They said, nope, he's fine. Just run your routes, wear a leg sleeve, wear a brace. How was that the response? I don't want to use the word negligence. I don't want to use harsh words, not knowing what those conversations were like. I don't know what Pearsall and the doctors have discussed, but I can almost guarantee you, as a human being who's had surgery, they did MRIs, they did x-rays. There are always options given to you as a person by doctors. Well, you can have surgery or you can have therapy, and if it doesn't respond, then we have to go to surgery. You're telling me they did nearly 9 months of therapy, saw a little bit of progress, knowing, the swelling's still there. You have to wear a knee brace. You have to wear a leg sleeve. And it's going to be an ongoing concern. And nobody pushed him to have surgery. No one said, hey, Ricky, it's December of last year. You have surgery now. You can be back, ready to go week 1. You can rehab alongside Alfred Collins and Michael Williams and George Kittle and Nick Bosa. But now all of a sudden, you go the last 7 months or so post playoffs into the offseason. You take time off. You have your rehab. You're out there posting social media workouts. Throughout that entire time, there was no swelling. Throughout the entire time, no doctor recommended to have surgery. You didn't come back to the facility 4 days early to say, hey, guys, my knee's a little sore. And you still went out there for 2 days, and then all of a sudden on day 3, it's your season might be over. Again, I don't want to use the word negligence, but somebody messed up. Whether it's team doctors, medical staff elsewhere, or Pearsall himself. You don't have a PCL injury, a knee injury, play through it, not really recover, and then elect to not address that fully in the offseason. If you want to earn the big bucks, be relied upon to be a top wide receiver in an offense, you do everything necessary to be on the field. And I can give Pearsall the credit to rehab during the year, to want to push, to help to be a mainstay in the offense and entering year 2, after being shot in year 1. I understand as a player, you want to be out there, you want to battle, but I can also guarantee you, Ricky Pearsall, in hindsight, would say, I would have rather had surgery 9 months ago, 6 months ago, and all of a sudden need it now. Now, again, I'm no doctor. I don't know what that process is like. I don't know how severe Pearsall's injury is or everything about PCLs. So I'm not going to act like I do. I just know that you don't just get random swelling one day and not have had it for 9 months prior. He didn't fall down. He didn't bump into somebody. It's not like out of nowhere, the body just goes, hey, we didn't tear anything. We didn't hit anything. I'm 26-year-old wide receiver. My PCL's hurt. I may have to have surgery. You got hurt last year, never fully addressed it, and now we're here in 2026. And you may not play at all. And we'll be sitting here next offseason thinking, wow, the first draft pick in the first round since Trey Lance, well, that guy wasn't good either. That guy didn't show up either. And I don't know whose fault it is. I am rooting for Ricky in totality to be a phenomenal player. I believe in the player of Ricky Pearsall. But while the season isn't over, it's not doom or gloom. This certainly is if we indeed get the news in the next few days or so that he has to have surgery. That it is season ending. That is a massive hit to a team, to a wide receiver room that has a lot of questions, one of them being Pearsall, but now also loses arguably from a ceiling standpoint, their best wide receiver immediately. Lori Matthews says here in the YouTube chat, Dr. Pandya, who is on 95.7 The Game a lot throughout the NFL season, said that it's pretty uncommon for these things to require surgery and don't pop back up until the player starts using it again. That's fine, Lori. I will trust Doc Pandya over myself most days. But the question or the comment on the end is, don't pop back up until the player starts using it again. Ricky has been using his PCL all offseason. He's been training on and away from the team facility all offseason. He's been doing workouts continually, getting himself ready, doing therapy, running routes against air, running against defensive backs, preparing for what was supposed to be his make or break season. And maybe that's some of the frustration involved, but it's not like Ricky's been sitting on the sidelines for the past 7 months not working out. That's why this is so confusing. That's why it's so frustrating, because he's been using it. And in 7 months in with no contact involved whatsoever, we're talking season-ending surgery when there has been no signs. He was running routes 2 days ago. And then in the blink of an eye, it just, boom, swollen, may need surgery, could be over. Now, I know I'm using the term season ending a lot, and the severity of the injury will determine how long he'll be out, how long the recovery will be. It could be 3 months. That's the best case scenario if you want to involve surgery. But you could be talking a 6 to 12 month recovery if it is a reconstruction. I don't think it's that. I'm not going to assume it's that. But this is one of the biggest hits you can possibly have without losing somebody like Nick Bosa or Brock Purdy or Mike Evans or Christian McCaffrey. Ricky Pearsall was supposed to be the dude next to Mike Evans. Getting Mike Evans supposed to unlock Ricky Pearsall, alleviate the pressure off of him, make him more of that number 2 wide receiver like he was supposed to be with Brandon Ayuk next to him. And now it's not the case. Now we are sitting here after San Francisco wasted 3 first-round draft picks on Trey Lance. The first-round draft pick since Trey Lance is on the cusp of being labeled a bust if you haven't already put him there. And while you can't control injuries like being shot or tearing your ACL in a game when you get hit, or breaking, an ankle or a foot when you get hit by a player, tackling's part of the game. But this felt very controllable. This felt very preventable from Ricky and the Niners training staff. And while I do want to give those guys the benefit of the doubt, after everything we've seen the past decade or so, it's really hard to do that. And now we're sitting here on July 29th after discussing, Stribling and Pearsall and McCaffrey once Kittle comes back and Mike Evans. Oh my God, this offense can really be something. You are now missing what you believe to be a major component into your offense because of injury, and maybe due to some sort of negligence from this team's training staff or the player itself. And it hurts because Jeff Mueller, who works for Fantasy Points and is a Thrive clinic therapist, he put on Twitter, and I know I don't normally rely on Twitter doctors because why would you? But he says PCL injuries lead to joint laxity. It's instability in the joint, leading to shear force across the joint during impact, high load activity, running routes, cutting, that sort of thing. That causes swelling and irritation. The more you use it, the more it gets worn down. That's pretty, obvious analysis there, right? But he says it's not a quick fix, and it's been an issue since December, January. I can go back to October, and he's had 3 subsequent re-aggravations of the injury. That's why this is a problem now. And for a PCL, according to Mueller himself, if there's instability and they've already tried to rehab it, then surgery is likely the answer. That would cost him all of 2026. Now, it's one doctor. It's one doctor. You have to get more than one opinion. And this doctor is not in that room.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
But it's not a good sign for Pearsall and the team's medical staff to, through 3 days of training camp, to already be talking about season-ending surgery for an injury you knew about and have openly re-aggravated 3 previous times, dating back to last October through January, and then had a whole offseason to work through it. So I don't know why he didn't get surgery in October. I don't know why he didn't get surgery after the second re-aggravation. I don't know why. The second this team lost against Seattle, Ricky Pearsall didn't say, I'm going to go under the knife to get this thing fixed and done immediately. Now, again, I don't know what the x-rays, the MRIs looked like, but in retrospect, God, it's frustrating. From a fan standpoint, I'm sure Pearsall himself is pissed off too. I don't want to forget he's involved in this frustration. Yes, as why didn't you get it fixed? But also too, I'm sure he's just hating life right now. He has not had a season that has not been plagued or ruined by some sort of catastrophic injury. PCL last year, PCL this year maybe. Then, of course, being shot in the chest, almost dying. It has been a very hard road for Pearsall's NFL career, and I hope that fixes itself. But everybody maybe they weren't banking on it, relying on it. They were certainly believing throughout the NFL that if he's healthy, Pearsall will break out in a big way. You'll see the benefits of Ricky Pearsall. But man, like, it sucks. It sucks for him, sucks for the team, and it puts them in a bind now. We do have some comments here. Joseph Ernberg, been a member for 4 months. Thank you so much, Joseph. He says, at least the Niners have the injury excuse again. Always positive, Joseph. Always positive. And then he also says this for $1.99. Thank you so much for the super chat. Wonder if Ricky's still keeping those receipts. You know, it's so funny, Joseph, because 2 days ago, coming into training camp, Ricky posts the hype video for himself leading into the first couple practices. And I'm like, you aren't ready. He's breaking out. Clearly, Ricky wasn't ready either, because it feels like every time it starts, you know, that bad boy falls back into reverse and he just, you know, goes back a couple steps. The dude feels like he's stuck in a ditch. And every time he thinks he gets himself loose and, oh, I'm free, right back into it. And it's like, good God, dude. But it does put this team into a bind. You know, it's just, where do you turn now? Do you turn to Deebo Samuel, who I have been not entirely against, but it was more predicated on if someone goes down? Well, now that Ricky's down, are you open to the idea of Deebo Samuel being a Niner, or at least more seriously considering the thought? And man, like, it's hard not to. He knows the playbook. He knows the offense. While there may be some lingering concerns of, does Shanahan fall back into the old I love Deebo Samuel too much offensive traits he's had, if guys like Watkins and Cowling and those dudes don't step up and maybe more injuries occur, it's like Deebo may be the option. If Pearsall is certainly done for the year, I am 100% bringing in Deebo Samuel. Simply because that guy, you are then replacing one guy guaranteed for a roster spot with another guy guaranteed for a roster spot. And at that point, I don't mind taking a chance on Deebo. I didn't think 3 days into practice we'd be here. I figured maybe, you know, it'd be August. It'd be before the preseason's over. You know, someone goes down, Deebo's in. It's 3 days into the season. Now we're talking like they need to bring in Deebo Samuel big time. So that's one place they can turn to. I can report, kind of surprisingly, and thank God this is the case, that the Niners do have a little bit of depth on that roster bubble. We've talked about, you know, Jacob Cowling being there and Jordan Watkins being there, those two guys being, you know, kind of question marks in the room. Demarcus Robinson is still here. Now, he's not Ricky Pearsall when healthy, but Robinson does know the offense, the playbook, knows where to be for the most part. And at times last year did play in the bigger games well, against the Colts, against Philadelphia, those being the two big standouts. Now, you want to find more consistency in that for him, but he can be Pearsall's backup. And, you know, I think today, with Pearsall being out, Robinson getting more opportunity, maybe now off the roster bubble, if Pearsall is going to be out for a elongated period of time, Robinson, I think, quickly becomes kind of the de facto receiver 2 or 3, because you still don't know what Stribling can be. We'll get to him in a second, because I think for 3 days he's been really good, but he's still young and a rookie. Robinson can come in on a 1-year deal, really cheap, you know, and just kind of plug and play, and, you know, you be okay with that. So, you know, it's good to see, and almost thankfully Robinson's here. Thankfully they didn't trade him. Thankfully he wasn't someone they cut immediately after getting Mike Evans there. I think they realized that an older Mike Evans, Pearsall now having injury concerns coming into the year, you want to have that 7th guy that you can kind of plug and play if you have to. And Robinson certainly is that type of dude where if Pearsall is gone, Robinson's darn near a lock for a roster spot if he already wasn't entering the season. And, you know, I don't think it's the worst replacement. You could be reliant on, Jacob Cowling and just Jordan Watkins and Will Pauling, but you do have a little bit of comfort or protection with Robinson there. But that leads to the second question. What does it mean for those young wide receivers in that room? In the immediate aftermath, it means guys like Stribling and Watkins and Cowling are going to get more reps, which is never a bad thing. I wish it wasn't under the circumstances of one of the guys being out for the year. But you are going to see more of Watkins and Cowling and Stribling, hear more from those guys, and you're going to really start to know which one of those dudes will be a difference maker in 2026. Clay Kubiak talked this morning to the media. He did indeed say that, Jordan Watkins has taken the next step. Now, what does that mean? That can mean a lot of things. It can also mean nothing at the same time. But he mentioned that he was one of the wide receivers that worked out with Brock Purdy a lot during the offseason. So if they built some sort of camaraderie and chemistry, and you can have him be your fourth wide receiver and a reliable one at that can be a field stretcher, it also a little bit does take the Ricky Pearsall absence. You can take the brunt of that a little bit more if Watkins does become some sort of player for them this season. Had a couple of nice catches today. He had a nice kind of back shoulder catch towards the sideline. And you have seen more of that down the field explosiveness from him against the defensive backs thus far through a couple of days of training camp. But the other side of that is Jacob Cowling. I'm going to be honest. I don't think Jacob Cowling makes the roster unless he just takes off. It's been 2 days, or it was 2 days, and he wasn't good. He's an undersized guy that can't beat physical defensive backs. When you have stickier cornerbacks, he can't get around them physically. He's fast, but he's small. They can get hands on him. He has smaller arms, and it causes problems for him. And that's going to be the big knock on his game, and has been the big knock on his game coming into the NFL from Arizona. And so I don't know if that's going to translate. Like, his body isn't NFL ready or caliber. And so I'm kind of writing off Jacob Cowling early, and I hate doing that because it's so early and pads aren't on. Maybe things change. Maybe there's a role for him in the offense or on special teams somewhere, but they got to find guys that can play. And if you're getting locked up with no pads on against defensive backs on day 1 and 2, now you're a little better on day 3. There was a little bit, of that spark you believed he has, but man, like, he's just not been good. And even if there is a little bit of, or a glimpse of what Cowling can bring to an offense, you can't have 2 bad days and 1 good day. Now, maybe those stack as the offseason goes on, but when you're talking about now having to replace who you believe to be one of your starting caliber number 1, number 2 receivers with a guy that is undersized, can't really fill that role, and is getting bodied by stickier and lengthier and bigger defensive backs, that's a problem. But thank God they do have De'Zhaun Stribling, because even though it's only 3 days and the pads aren't on yet, these guys got to grow up quick. And I think Stribling, despite maybe not being the best route runner, he's been the best wide receiver not named Mike Evans on the football field. Now, in a group that doesn't have the most proven talent, what does that mean? I still believe Stribling has stood out in a very big way through 3 days. Talked about it yesterday through day 1 and 2, the size, the speed, the hands. The dude has, at least, again, through 3 days, the dude's got stickum on his hands. They've been phenomenal. His hands almost engulf the entire football. The dude can go up and get it. He can change, accelerate, decelerate rather quickly. This dude is, I don't want to say a one cut back playing receiver. That's pretty ridiculous to say, but he's a guy that in the yak department, he's been electric so far. Now, again, there's no pads on, you can't tackle, but the way he has shown out through 3 days is what you want to see from everybody else. Bigger, faster, stronger. How do you kind of ingrain yourself in the offense. And so far, Stribling's been the best or second best wide receiver on the roster. He had 5 more catches today at practice. I think it's roughly about 4 per day so far on average. So he's already got about, 13, 14 catches through the first 3 days. And yeah, it's practice. You'll make more of that once the pads come on and in preseason, regular season comes around. But he's looked good. And we talked about this yesterday of like they haven't had a wide receiver like him the past couple years. And I think more importantly, when you lose Juwan Jennings, now you're going to lose Pearsall maybe for a long time. You don't have Brandon Ayuk, you don't have Deebo Samuel as of right now. You got to have that guy unafraid and physically dominant enough to go over the middle. Stribling has eaten over the middle a lot through the first 3 days of training camp. Today, he had a ball over the middle, went up and got it. And it was like, Jesus, like you heard the crowd. Ooh, it was like they were wowed by what he was putting on tape and film and throughout the practices. And the good thing is he's probably, while Robinson maybe, fill out the Pearsall role immediately, Stribling has been moving around to the X, the Y, and the Z receiver spots and running all 3. So he's somebody I think they're going to try to move around a lot. It's the reason why you like him and Evans, and you like Pearsall there too. But you like him and Evans because those guys can swap and move around a lot despite being bigger, stronger, having the right frame for the X receiver spot. They don't mind moving around, and that'll be a chess piece for Shanahan if everything goes as planned. But that puts more pressure on guys like Stribling and Watkins and Cowing, and one of those dudes have to answer the call. My money is on Stribling simply because he is the highest picked of those wide receivers. But now your growth, now your translation into the NFL or transition into the NFL, excuse me, that's got to happen faster. You can bully, but you can bully guys with no pads on because you're bigger than them. But once the pads come on and they can hit you, how does that look? Do you continue to be that bully? And I think Stribling can be that and be that physically dominating presence that they haven't had in a long time. But, with Pearsall being out, the clock almost ramps up for them. If it was an hourglass, that saying is falling a lot faster for Stribling and mainly Watkins. Cowing's kind of running out of time unless he did prove something this offseason. But, it's not where you want to be. You wanted to give Stribling a little bit of time, let him kind of ingratiate him into the offense slowly, and then as the year progresses, bang, he takes off and becomes an impact player, kind of how Deebo was in 2019. Now you don't have the luxury of burying him as your 4th or 5th guy. Christian Kirk is hurt, Pearsall's hurt, and who knows how long those guys will be out. But, Stribling so far through 3 days continues to be a very, very good sign and maybe one of the best players offensively we've got to see in person. So we'll see if that continues. Obviously, that's up to my interpretation of how things have looked so far, but Pearsall being out sucks a lot. And it does change a lot for this offense, and it changes a lot for younger players around him that maybe you weren't asking too much from immediately, but now you're asking a lot from now going forward, and it's only July 29th, which I hope Pearsall is not going to be out for a long time. I'm hoping that whatever they choose, if it isn't surgery, it takes and it works out. But moving along on the show, we do have other injury news, which feels like a pretty common discussion point nowadays. Kalon Black will get much more time as the RB2 behind Christian McCaffrey because Jordan James suffered broken ribs and will miss some time. We don't know how long that is, but it looks like he may have broken his ribs when him and Fred Warner collided yesterday or 2 days ago, excuse me. You can see the highlight online. That may not be the point in time, but usually contact isn't permitted a lot unless it's, incidental. And so That kind of seems like that was the point in time. But for a player, Jordan James, that broke his finger last year and couldn't find the football field behind McCaffrey and Brian Robinson and even Guerendo, who wasn't that good. Now you have Jordan James again breaking his ribs. And if this costs him a month, you're talking about the majority of the preseason. Well, Kalen Black, come on down, and he's already the first 3 days, given Colton McKivitz said, like, I've never seen a young running back like him be so decisive and plant his foot and just go. And that's what you want to see. That's what you're wanting him to be behind Christian McCaffrey. So it looks like, again, through 3 days, where that 2026 draft class was going to be blocked by certain people, now it's an open competition wholeheartedly, and you may see Black and Stribling, if they can grow quickly, really grab onto like really important roles in the offense. And in Black's case, I think he'll be a player that Shanahan will have to rely on at some point, whether McCaffrey's just tired being the RB1 and needs a break or something worse happens. But, when one guy goes down, it's next man up. That's how you win in the NFL. It's how they won 12 games last year. So that same thing continues on in 2026. And then Malik Mustafa didn't practice today as a hamstring strain. He'll be back soon. Obviously, hamstrings can linger. We saw Cowing last year have 6 different hamstring strains and never play because of it. So it's something to watch, but I'm not too worried about it, but it's there. That's why you have guys like Nate Hobbs and Jair Brown and Marquis Siegel. But, for Mustafa, he was not the starting safety the past couple of days. He was mixing in with Siegel alongside Jair Brown, who has been the mainstay as a first-team safety. So, you could see Siegel get a neck up on Mustafa if he's going to miss a chunk of time. So, never a good thing to see young players get hurt. And for that 2024 class, there are some big questions now. Pearsall and Mustafa, Guerendo also being out. It's like, Jesus. But it's tough to sit back because we are 3 days through training camp and the injuries are already piling up. Kyle Shanahan gets into a car accident. Jordan James breaks his ribs. Ricky Pearsall may be out for the year. God, I hope not with a knee injury. Christian Kirk has a calf strain. He'll be out for a while. Valerian Lowe has a high ankle sprain. He'll be out for probably a month. Grayson Halton has a deep knee bone bruise. He'll be out for a while. And now Mustafa's out with the hamstring strain. And that doesn't even include George Kittle, who may or may not come back for week 1, probably not. Micah Williams, who you haven't seen much of, but there's been small glimpses of him on the sideline doing some work. Alfred Collins, who will be back before week 1, but still he's out. Then Isaac Guerendo, he'll be back soon, but still he'll be out for at least, the majority of, if not all of training camp leading into preseason. So the Niners are definitely already being snake bitten by the injury bug again after being bit by it in 2024 and 2025. So I'm hoping it's an off-season thing. I'm hoping it's a now thing. But man, it's hard to already see this being picked up or the injuries already kind of, becoming a thing again after how bad last year was. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. We have a comment by Joseph Ehrenberg again. He says, Stribling's the offensive player of the year. Like the confidence, Joseph. But he also says anything on Duggar or Ephesians Prysock. Ephesians Prysock, no. There hasn't been much to see from him or really, point to of like, oh, it's good or bad. It's been kind of a, I don't want to say invisible first 3 days, but he's buried behind 5 or 6 guys. Eli Apple's getting snaps over him right now. So, not much to report on that front, but Jaden Duggar, I can say, he's really big. He stands out amongst the bunch. He's basically, a defensive lineman playing linebacker that used to play safety. He's big, he's long. He's also pretty fast, but there's a long way to go for him. I think if anything, he'll be a special teamer. But I will say this, when he sees it, which just is more indicative of his tape last year when he sees it. He doesn't always see it, but when he sees it, he fires downhill pretty fast. And you can see that a little bit in the flat during practices, but it's kind of few and far between simply because, there's so many linebackers in the room and the opportunity isn't always there for him. And sometimes the play isn't going his way. But the few times the play has gone his way, he's in the flat and he sees it, it's not looked too bad. So I just think he's a guy who is, 2-3 years away that, you hope you see something from, which right now Duggar is probably on the Ricky Pearsall path of year 4. Here we go, baby. This is the year. But so far, the big standouts have been Stribling, Kalon Black, and notably height on defense. Outside of the cramp stuff that happened with the legs and the arms, he actually has looked pretty good, which those are your first 3 picks. So they better be, which I think, is pretty on par with how mostly things go. And yes, height did come back today. Also changed his number from 94 to 58. So I hope you haven't bought Romello Height jerseys yet. If you have, see if you can take him back and get a new one because he has changed his number from 94 to 48. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the training camp session today, I want to remind you guys to use our promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase, whether it's baseball tickets. The trade deadline's almost here. If your team gets a new player and you want to see him live and in person, go to SeatGeek.com and use that promo code. The WNBA is obviously still in full swing, had an all-star game a couple of days ago, I believe. The NBA ramping back up. LeBron James is a 76er, and the NFL is narrowly almost in our sights. If you want to get tickets, they're expensive, I know, but go to SeatGeek.com and get yourself a small $20 discount by using our promo code 49ers Access. 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. And now I want to talk about the defense, because it was a hot topic when they hired Raheem Morris. It was a hot topic when they let go of, or Robert Saleh departed for the Titans head coaching job. And no pads. There's a caveat to this conversation, obviously, but the secondary of the San Francisco 49ers that may have had equal amount of questions as the receiver room. You have your one starter in Lenore and Mike Evans. Then you have a bunch of questions around them, right? Maybe there's more proven talent in that room based off veterans in there. Nate Hobbs, Eli Apple, even Renardo Green and Stout do give you some promise. The secondary, namely the cornerbacks, have been the best unit on the football field. They have been fantastic throughout the first 3 days. And usually non-padded practices favor wide receivers because can't touch guys. They're getting more free releases. That's not been the case. Now that could be because San Francisco's receiver room maybe isn't as touted, as proven, as good as they should be, or, you hope them to be. But I think it's more.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
It more proves that with good coaching, with the bodies in that room, the competition they're currently having in that room, you are seeing guys not only push each other, but you are seeing younger players take next steps. We talked about Renardo Green yesterday, or 2 days ago now, about Raheem Morris, gushing about him, just being like, this guy's a player. He's going to be so good for us, and him taking the next step in his development. And now you're seeing, through 3 days, that on display. Had a nice PBU a couple days ago, had an amazing PBU today against Mike Evans. Deep ball, and I mean a perfectly thrown deep ball by Brock Purdy, but broken up by Bernardo Green. And it's like, man, like those ball skills are there. And even if you aren't getting interceptions, you're breaking up deep passes and you're playing against Stafford, Darnold, JSN, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, that's got to be there. And if you can do it against Mike Evans, whereas last year it's just doing it against Pearsall, who really isn't healthy, and a bunch of no names behind him, or Jawan Jennings and guys like that, guys, you're like, yeah, they're good, but there's a reason why those guys aren't getting massive contracts in free agency. Now you're doing it against Mike Evans. That matters. And so I think having Mike Evans, although it was supposed to, and it still can, help the younger receivers in the room, it also does help the cornerbacks play against guys that are Hall of Fame talents, right? We talked about the impact Trent Williams had on Nick Bosa early in his career. I don't see why Mike Evans couldn't have that for Bernardo Green on the defensive side as well. And now you're seeing Green look like a year 3 cornerback ready to become a year 3 cornerback that was a second-round draft pick you picked to replace Travarius Ward a couple of years ago. So been impressed so far, but it's not just him. Upton Stout today, he had a dropped interception, but while he dropped it, it was a PBU, and he played a whip route by De'Zhaun Stribling perfectly. Jumped it, read it, was right there, and it was like, oh, like you want those guys to turn those opportunities into interceptions, but you're right there. Like you have one more step to make, and if you're there continually, the odds are you're going to be able to get that football back for your offense. So you are seeing Stout and Green grow in year 2 and in year 3, or at least in a small sample size, show some things thus far. But on top of that, Jack Jones still looks fantastic. I know he got beat by Pearsall 2 days ago, and it was like, yikes, that wasn't great. It was a great route by Pearsall, and now it's not going to be the case for a while, it seems like. But Jack Jones picked off Mac Jones today on a pass targeting Jacob Cowling, just went up and got it, took it away. And again, those are the ball skills that you want to see from Jack Jones. That's why you're brought in here, to get takeaways, get turnovers. And I think he brings that Arizona State Sun-Devil feistiness to a defense. I think he's a guy that he's going to make the roster. I really believe Jack Jones will make the roster. And right now, so far, he's proven to be at least around the football, and then obviously getting an INT today, which this team needs that a lot. And then Darrell Luter Jr., a guy who I think is probably playing for his Niner career at this point in time. I know last year was kind of the CB4 behind Lenore, Stout, and Green, but he's probably on the roster CB 5, 6, or 7. I know I said the numbers, but still. He's a guy who, you really can't rely on. And maybe that changes under Raheem Morris, who I think so far been pretty right on through 3 days of him having the impact on the defensive back room I believed he would in his coverages that kind of Steve Wilks had. You saw under Wilks, a lot of the young guys, Brown, Lenore, grow into their roles, whether rookies or veterans. And you saw the secondary take a leap up in 2023. It's a small sample size, small glimpse of what could happen, but you are seeing the defensive back room be in the right place at the right time, make plays so far, which usually at this point in time is all offense, and it's not been the case. That said, it's not just the cornerbacks. We talked about this in the last podcast of the Niners linebackers, Greenlaw and Warner. It's like they never left. And today, the very first play of practice, first play of team drills, McCaffrey gets the ball. I believe Warner punched it out, gets a peanut punch. Greenlaw scoops it up, runs for a touchdown. And you're like, we didn't have that last year. You saw some good things with Warner out there, and as soon as he was gone, it was just horrible. And we hope that isn't the case again this year. But when you have mainly Warner, but you have Greenlaw next to him being the running mate, I mean, it's like having a bunch of hyenas out there. They're all attacking the football. They're running around making plays, and it's like that's difference-making football. We said in the last podcast, Lenore told the media Greenlaw is their bully, and they got him back. Well, you got Warner back too, which we don't forget that. He's the best linebacker in football, but it's like when you have that tandem, I mean, you want to go back to the 70s and 80s cartoons. It's like having the Wonder Twins, right? It's like having Batman and Robin out there. You know, it's like the Niners do have a dynamic duo, not just on the edge or the defensive line. They got two guys over the middle of that football field that can wreak havoc on any opposing defense or offense, excuse me. Whether it's Stafford or Sam Darnold, those guys just simply can get it done and create some problems for an opposing offense. But to end today's show, let's talk about Brock Purdy, because Brock today, as he has been for the first few days, was also good. 14 for 18. He had a beautiful throw, already mentioned it, broken up by Bernardo Green towards the sideline, a deep pass. Outside of that, though, his best throw today probably came over the middle, which has been Brock Purdy's bread and butter. He layered a throw over the outstretched arms of Fred Warner, got over the fingertips right to DeMarcus Robinson, who was replacing Ricky Pearsall, and brought it down. And you were like, that's a pretty ball. That is a pretty ball to commemorate you having your second baby, or going to be having your second baby. So congrats, Brock Purdy and Jenna, on baby number 2, but also congrats on this beautiful ball you threw in practice, because God, it was gorgeous. But also you've seen some classic Purdy, right? Where we all saw the game against the Bears last year, and Chris Collinsworth of like, whoa, shades of Patrick Mahomes, with Purdy out of the pocket, making dudes miss and floating the balls, into the end zone of Kyle Juszczyk. Well, it wasn't a touchdown today. He had a similar play where he's scrambling, trying to make a play. And usually, they kind of have no play is dead, but a lot of times you'll see quarterbacks force throws, they'll just throw it up and say, whatever, nothing happening here. Whereas today, Purdy running around, scrambling, trying to find a play, sucks the defense in, and Jacob Cowan just sitting there like, hey, I'm free. Pick me up. Lobs it over everyone's head and gets a big completion. So I can gladly report as well, the Niners, despite the injury stuff and the Pearsall stuff, there has been a lot of good things we've seen so far. Purdy's been really good so far through practices. The Greenlaw-Warner tandem is just, it's like nostalgia. It's always fun. And of course, secondary, who I think has been the best unit on the football field. So another good day for Niners training camp. I wish it came with better injury news for the bunch, but it makes it more fun to watch Stribling and Kalon Black be able to step up in the meantime and hopefully make an impact for a team that now desperately needs it once the games start, and it gives them a chance to prove themselves early and hopefully soon. But God, I hope there's no more injury news soon. San Francisco won't practice tomorrow, but they'll be back at it on Thursday. Tomorrow's Thursday. Be back at it on Thursday? Whatever, it's not important. They're not practicing tomorrow. They'll practice in 2 days. There you go. I made it simple. Fine. But until then, we'll be back hopefully whenever they practice again in the next 2 days to bring you some more coverage and break down training camp day by day as the sessions continue. With that said, don't forget to follow us on social media at 49ers.access is the Instagram. 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. And yes, tomorrow's Thursday. They practice on Friday and Saturday. So hopefully some more content coming your way in the next 2 days or so. And you can also use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Thank you to 404 Error Page Name Not Found, Lori Matthews, Kenny, Joseph Ernberg. You guys are fantastic. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody here in the YouTube chat. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Big Brick 84, you as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your Wednesday. Law of Awe on top of it. Tommy Huxley, what's up, you fairy? and hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. I'm going to go watch the Odyssey and hopefully not fall asleep in the next 3 hours of my life. God, I hope it's good. Don't waste my time, Christopher Nolan. And until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett. And as always, stay faithful.